My foster parents, who ended up being my adoptive parents, they adopted me actually last December before we got married. That was always something I really wanted. They're literally the greatest people on the planet. But during this time, I really struggled with anxiety, depression, PTSD. I tried to commit suicide a few times, layers of trauma that really was compounded. And it wasn't really until I met my foster now adoptive parents that I got to start on that healing journey with them. But also, I could go to counseling and actually work on things and not just focus on, surviving each day.
Hey guys, it's Melissa Moore. Thanks for joining me for today's episode of Faith, Hope, Love, where we grow together in our faith, increase in hope, and learn how to better love God and love other people. We are in the middle of our Momentum series, which is based off of Hebrews 12, verses 1 through 3. So if you haven't yet read that part of the Bible, I would highly encourage you just to quickly pause here, go take a look, and we're going to essentially be applying that today through the lives of our really awesome guests. In the last few weeks, we met with Joanne Kim, licensed marriage family therapist, and she shared with us a little bit of the therapy side of what is trauma and what are toxic relationships. And so if you missed that, again, go back and watch those episodes. Today we're going to apply all of what we talked about the last 2 weeks with this really amazing couple. Our guests for today are Justin and Alexis Black, and they are the authors of Redefining Normal. And it's how two foster kids beat the odds and discovered healing, happiness, and love. They are a truly phenomenal couple. They are the real deal. They've walked through some really, really tremendous experiences in their lives, and they're going to share that a little bit with us today. If you haven't picked up your copy of the book, please do. Right now, it's 50% off on their website, so definitely hop on over there for your own autographed copy from Justin and Alexis Black. So here they are to share their story. Thanks, Justin and Alexis, for hopping on the show with me today. If you wouldn't mind just introducing yourselves and telling us a little bit about you.
Thank you. We appreciate that.
Yes.
And we're actually doing an audiobook right now. So we know that that's going to be even more impactful.
Yeah.
We haven't necessarily announced that to a lot of people because, it's kind of a surprise, but we're starting to weave it into what we talk about because we want people to know that it's coming. Because even listening back to the audiobook and hearing it from our voice and our story, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is going to really hit people because when you read a book, you have to imagine, the feelings and the voices, but you're going to get it full force when the audiobook comes out.
Well, thank you guys seriously for taking the time just to be on the show. Your book truly was so well written, and I know I'm a little bit older than you guys. My husband and I have been married for 9 years, but I still felt like I learned a lot from your chapters on marriage and moving forward and health in your marriage. So thank you again, seriously, for putting a book out there like this one that's really so vulnerable and transparent. It really shows how God has really transformed you and done such a powerful healing work in your lives. So before we jump into your full story, I kind of wanted to see if you would just share a little bit about how you guys met. It's a really cute story.
Yeah, do you want to go?
You got it. You tell it really well.
Yeah, so how we met, very interesting story, one to always remember. So I was an incoming freshman at Western Michigan University, and the program we met was the CETA Scholars Program. And CETA is a program for foster youth in higher education. So if you have experience in the foster care system, you go to Western Michigan University and you apply to the program. You're able to enter and you receive a campus coach and so many other amazing resources and things. And it's really an amazing program. But coming into college, they have this thing called Summer Early Set Week or Summer Early Transition Week, which stands for Set Week. So with this week, it's during the summer before the fall semester begins. And during this week, I'm a freshman. I'm nervous. There's a lot going on, but I was able to meet Alexis, who was at that time a junior in college. And, she'll tell you how she thought I was a baby and too young and all this other stuff, because you enter the program, the CETA Scholars Program, pretty much at any point in college, just as long as you can apply and get accepted. And she'll explain how basically she was just operating off of other scholarship opportunities, but the CETA scholarship is unique because it provides, like we said, campus coaches and so many other resources to foster youth. and it was just an amazing opportunity for us to come together and just I was a little young, but we made it
Mm.
work, and we started and had an amazing friendship, and we were talking all summer. We always talk about how we
Mhm.
made bowls of cereal at night together, and we're on the phone and FaceTime. We pour our favorite bowl of cereal, and yeah, we just talked and formed a close friendship, and that eventually turned into a romantic relationship.
I mean, we would talk for like 5, 6 hours a day, every day, and just
Hmm.
laugh our butts off till like 1 in the morning.
Yeah.
But he would
Yeah.
also text me Bible verses, and that was something that I never had because, as you read in the book, I was in an abusive relationship for years, and I was dating an atheist, and then to go to a man that will send me scriptures and ask me, about my faith and things, and so it was just completely changing the dynamic of what I saw in a relationship, and he really helped me redefine what that looked like.
I just think that you guys are the cutest. I've loved really just following you guys on social media and seeing all the things that you guys are doing now with not just the things with your marriage, but also with starting your own organizations and like just doing really phenomenal things just to really change the world. No big deal. But I would really kind of like to just dive in, and if you wouldn't mind maybe sharing some of your story. We talked in the last couple episodes about trauma and toxic relationships, and I know that that is really a huge part of your guys' stories. So, if you wouldn't mind just sharing a little bit about what you guys have walked through, both pre foster care and in foster care.
So I'll start with the fact that when I was younger, I was about 6 years old when I lived with my mom, and she actually died by suicide before I moved and lived with my dad. And I moved with my biological father right after my biological mother died, and that's really when the abuse started with him that I remember. It may have started before that, but when I remember it actually beginning was after that, and it was physical, sexual, and emotional abuse until I was about 13, and so around that time. I think it was like 13 and a half, I would say. And I was leaving church with my friend, and then the night before, my dad actually he was drunk, and I came home late because I couldn't find a ride home. And he just went crazy and started hitting me, throwing golf balls at me, and slamming me against the wall and things. And my arm turned blue, and so that was kind of the starting point of when I was forced to tell on him, because when I went to church the next day, people were noticing. And then also I had to tell my friend, I cannot go home. Her mom was about to drop me off, and I'm like, we have to figure out another solution because I just can't go back. And so that really started the journey of me entering foster care. And I went and lived with my aunt and uncle, which was actually not the best placement for me. I know a lot of people really support kinship placement, but that actually wasn't the best placement for me because there was a lot of emotional and mental abuse there, and just things that were said behind closed doors to me rather than outside of what other people were observing. And I lived with her until I was a junior in high school. Then she kicked me out and actually threw all my stuff outside. And then I had another family member come and pick that stuff up. Then I went and lived with my foster parents, who ended up being my adoptive parents. They adopted me actually last December before we got married. That was always something I really wanted. And they're literally the greatest people on the planet. But during this time, I really struggled with anxiety, depression, PTSD. Uh, I tried to commit suicide a few times, and I was in a mental institution for a week. It was actually 4 days, and it was like some of the worst 4 days in the world. But yeah, I had a lot of experiences around that, and then I was in an 8-year abusive relationship from 13 to 22. So a lot of really uh, layers of trauma that really was compounded. And it wasn't really until I met my foster now adoptive parents that I got to start on that healing journey with them. But also, I could go to counseling and actually work on things and not just focus on, surviving each day.
Alexis, just thank you so much just for sharing with such vulnerability your story and just the things that you've walked through with. I know you didn't share a ton of detail, it's all in the book, but I just appreciate your vulnerability and your willingness just to share with people what you've walked through, for those that are maybe going through it right now or who've gone through it and just still need to find healing. So thank you just for being willing to do that. I would love to, Justin, to hear some of your story as well. I know that you have had a completely different experience from Alexis, and I would love just to hear what it looked like for you growing up in the foster care system.
Yeah, of course. So I entered the system at about 9 years old, largely due to my parents' substance abuse issues, and largely because of that was because of mental health issues that it's pretty much generational in my family. And we talk a lot about in the book of generational mental health issues being generational in families and passed down over and over again and being mislabeled and not recognized as much. So that's where things really began for me, and I had to deal with this burden in my life and in my childhood of my parents being close in proximity, but not really being there for me and showing love and affection and coming to visit me. So I entered the foster care system at 9 years old, and I went to live with my oldest brother at the time. I'm the youngest of five siblings, so I went to me and my fourth youngest brother. The fourth youngest brother of the five siblings went to live with my oldest sibling, and we lived there for about 2 years until we left that placement and went to live with my aunt for a couple of years till I left that placement, and then just bounced around a bit and then ended up into a group home at about 16 or 17 years old. So this entire time, I just had to deal with the fact that I had parents who were alive and who were there and close, maybe no longer than 20 to 30 minutes away from me, but they didn't come visit me and they lived their own lives. And kind of dealing with those ideas and doing all that I could to go visit them, but not always feeling that love back. So trying to fill this void of feeling worthy, because as you're a child, a lot of your parents' love and affection makes you feel worthy of certain things and opportunities. But if you don't feel that love and affection from your parents first and your family, then you don't feel you're worthy of much of anything in life. And you always carrying this burden. So that's kind of what I've dealt with throughout my teenage years, and that really affected my mental and emotional health. Combined with the fact that at 13 years old, just randomly on my way home from school one day in middle school, I was attacked by high school students, hit with a brick in my mouth where I lost six of my teeth and a part of my bone structure in my mouth underneath my nose. So dealing with that and not understanding how to process life with without my smile, at the time I didn't even have partials or fake teeth where you can put in. I had to go back to school, and a lot of kids in school can always be harsh, or kids in school can be harsh sometimes. So I had to go back to school in this environment where I had my smile taken away, but it really felt as if my happiness was taken away. So I had to deal with this burden of mental health instability in an environment where family and others didn't know how to deal with those things. If I wasn't seeking revenge, then there was nothing else that I wanted. But at the time, I was trying to cling on to some sense of forgiveness for myself, for allowing me to be in that situation, for the people who assaulted me, for my parents who weren't there for me at the time. I could have easily blamed others, and for a long time I did, but I had to go through the process of discovering God and who God was and the role He played in my life. And though we went to church and practiced religion, I wanted to get to a point where I can develop a true and authentic relationship with God. And that's when that didn't happen until maybe college, when I really started to just be uh, separate from everyone and deal with my own personal issues and really just I was going to class, Bible study, and I was going to the gym, and that was it. So that was my routine when I got to college, and it got to a point where I really started to accept God into my life wholeheartedly, even though I identified as a Christian. That really helped me process my mental and emotional health and get me to where I am today, where I can learn how to process some of those traumatic experiences and not carry those burdens of worthiness.
Justin, thank you just again for sharing with so much vulnerability. And again, you share so much more in your book. I want to really kind of hit on two amazing things that you kind of touched on in your story, with mental health. And the fact that you are, willing to share about your own personal struggles, around mental health and sharing stuff that you've experienced with your family struggles with mental health. I know for me, I've shared in episodes past on my show, it's generational, right? And so, for you to be able to share about that so publicly is really profound, because I mean, what you're doing is you're essentially helping to break down that stigma within our society that's saying If you're dealing with your own junk, don't tell people about it. And I think by sharing your story, you're allowing other people to find healing and find hope and find freedom from their own mental health struggles. So I so appreciate your vulnerability in that issue. Also, I really wanted to touch on the idea that you kind of shared about how there was kind of like gaps in your relationship with your family where you gave so much financially and emotional support to your family, but you didn't always receive that back. And I know there were seasons where you did, but overall, I mean, from hearing your story now and also in your book, you share so much about how they didn't reciprocate the love that you gave to them. And it's cool how you kind of share this idea that in our gaps where our family maybe is dysfunctional and they're not able to love and give us what we need as kids, God fills that gap. And it's, again, this is like a huge thing to see this in both of your guys' lives, that you guys have really looked to God to fill in those gaps where, where love was not there, where in, place of trauma and toxic relationships, God has given healing and hope and love. And I mean, it's really evident in all the things that you do. And with that, I kind of would love to hear too, from both of you, what it's looked like for you to find healing. Was God part of that process? How do people move on after experiencing trauma and toxic relationships? What has been your experience?
A lot of times in life, we try to put our burdens, our trauma, and experiences on our partner and rely on them as if they are God. And we try to fill those God holes with humans. It's only certain things God can heal us through. God heals us through all we've been through. And God can go walk us through that process. But a lot of times we turn to humans, we turn to drugs, we turn to even things that don't seem as toxic, like working out or food, whatever it is. We turn to other worldly things and turn away from God to heal us or fill that void. But when you enter into a relationship, and I started this initially when I first got into a relationship with Alexis, I haven't processed or understood all of my trauma. I still dealt with those filling voids of my parents' love and other things. I've dealt with that, and I tried to even rely on Alexis as a counselor and say, Alexis, she can just be my counselor. I don't need to go to counseling or anything. But she said, no, that's not fair for me to do that. And being aware of that I really wanted to seek out professional help and say, I wanted to go to someone who was equipped with the resources and skills to help me. If I have a car that breaks down, I should go to someone who knows how to fix that issue. If I have a problem in my life, I should go to someone who knows how to fix that issue. So first seeking God with all my problems and God revealing that through his spirit, through scripture, but also God providing people in my life like a counselor who can help me work those mental health issues.
Gosh, I absolutely love just, there's so much gold that you just shared about there. But this idea that in order for you to have a healthy relationship after having toxic ones, you really need to do your own work. And it's cool, again, seeing your guys' relationship, how you've really done that, right? You've been very intentional with making sure that both of you are healthy so that you guys can really move forward together. It's really powerful. I would love to kind of hear kind of more detail of like what that looks like, what has helped you, especially within like the therapy process.
I always encourage people to really just try to understand the roots of their actions and what they're doing in their daily lives, and to also reflect on, what habits do you have and how have you formed those? What opinions do you have about yourself, your internal self-talk? Because a lot of times that's given to us by our parents. And oftentimes that comes through the self-fulfilling prophecy of being or doing what people have said to us that is so negative. And so for us, we know that really getting to the root of those issues is how we can heal and move forward. And healing is an ugly journey, but the beauty that comes out of that, and then how you allow God to come into your life because you've forced yourself really to lean on him more rather than your own understanding, which is how you've lived your whole life. And unfortunately that just doesn't work. And so with that, I just really encourage people to heal. And through that, it could be finding a counselor. And what we always do when I tell people is make an appointment with at least 2 or 3 counselors and make that first appointment your interview with them and ask them, like, who are you? What are your beliefs? What is your foundation? Try to get to their character and their integrity, because this is somebody that you're going to for advice and to give you insight into your life. And so you want to make sure where's their heart at and their mind, to make sure that they're positioned in a way that they can support you. And so I always use that first interviews, or that first session, as more of an interview, because you don't want to go into a session, open your heart up, especially if you've never done that before, and it's not a good fit, because that can be more traumatic in itself. Then you have to go to another counselor and do it all over again. And so you really want to, in the same way you would choose a partner, to open your heart up and open your feelings up to, this is somebody that you're investing in, and it's an investment in both ways. So make sure that this is somebody that's really worth that investment for you, and you feel safe and comfortable with them. Because I know I've done that several times, where I would just go in and pour my whole heart out, and I'm like, this is not a good fit. Why did I just do that? And so I had to learn through trial and error. So learning from my mistakes there.
Yeah.
I think that's so important. I mean, really seeing a therapist that is tailor fit to things you're walking through. Like, you wouldn't go to like an ADHD specialist if you were trying to deal with trauma and toxic relationships. So it's cool that you've made a point to find someone that really fits what you're looking for and what you're seeking to work through.
When I went into my counselor's office and she had a little pamphlet of all her specialties and her qualifications, I was like, I found my person.
Yeah.
Because it was like, this is everything that she specializes in is exactly the support that I need. And so it's through that investigation on your own part, in the same way as I mentioned that you would do hopefully as a part for your partner, and the person that you have a partner in life with, that you would do this for somebody that you're seeking out to give you advice. Both of us, because our roots are in Christianity, and if anybody else is potentially seeking God, or does believe in God, then absolutely, I would say go to a Christian counselor. And that was both of us. It was kind of a requirement for us when we went to go see our counselor, because we want to make sure that you're rooted in the same values and principles as we are. And so that was a part of that interview phase of, are you a Christian? What do you believe in? How do you view family? How do you view relationships? Just really getting to the root of who they are and what their definitions of things are. And in the same way that we challenge our readers to do, we were already doing that in our daily lives, with even interviewing our counselor. we were kind of already doing those things. And even whatever it is, like if we're hiring people to really try to give us insight into who we are, what we need, things like that, then I believe that, yes, they should be of the same faith or have the same values as you.
I think that is so wise. I mean, if you're spending time with a therapist, I mean, you're investing a lot of time, you're investing a lot of money. And so you want to make sure that the therapist you're working with, if you're out there looking for a therapist right now, definitely to find someone that aligns with your values on family, on faith, just to make sure that they're going to help you push forward in the right direction. So I think that's so wise. Justin, I want to kind of go back to you. You share a little bit in the book that you do a lot of mentoring with young guys that are still in the foster care system. And I would just kind of love to hear, what would you say to someone that is still in the system today?
Of course, I would say just similar to what Alexis said, just be able to try to control what you could control. I think a few things that are good about the system, or about a lot of circumstances, is that our influences, the words we say and our mindset, has a large influence on our future and the things that happen to us. A lot of times, of course, if you're a young child, if you're even a young teenager, sometimes with your family influence and the things going on around you, you just can't have much control of it. But I'm a strong believer in, like she said, just once you are able to establish your core values and be able to identify what you want to be, who you want to be in life, as far as God's perspective and what He has for you in life and His point of view on who you are. If you continue to pursue God's will, then there will always be good things that happen. So seek first the kingdom of God with all you do, and then everything else will be taken care of. So that's what I would encourage young people to do who are in those situations, who are facing those tough circumstances. And it may seem so depressing and so discouraging that, being a young person, sometimes things seem out of your control. But faith is just the ability to see things that aren't there right now. So being in the right spiritual mindset and the right spiritual setting will really get you to where you need to be, and having that faith in God.
Justin, I just so appreciate how you point people to Jesus and that, that are needing hope and healing. And I know that's been a huge, huge part of your story and getting to where you are today for both of you. So I appreciate you doing that and passing that faith along to other people. Not only have you moved on from the stuff you guys have walked through, you've taken the effort to move forward towards Jesus, and now you're helping to move others forward, and it's so cool just to kind of see all the things you guys are doing now. I would also love to hear, maybe there's people that are watching this that are considering foster adopt. I know both of you have had totally different experiences in foster care and foster adopt situations. Alexis, yours being a little bit more positive, but what would you guys say to the person that's maybe considering doing foster adopt?
Well, first, I always encourage people, especially if you're a Christian, I really believe that it's our duty to take care of, the youth that are in foster care or the orphan. It's in the Bible. It's really a part of our job and our mission. And if every single church were to foster or adopt one child, then the foster care system would be eradicated. It wouldn't even be an issue. So I believe that a lot of the reason why the foster care system is where it is because that's ultimately a failure on society, but also the failure on the church to do its job. And so if every church, as I mentioned, were to take in one child, that person that makes that decision to bring in that child, if they just have to be in the position and ready to do that, not to say that everybody is ready to be a foster parent. Not everybody should be a parent because it may cause more harm, but that doesn't mean that you don't have a role to play of being the tutor, the mentor, the coach, whatever it is. You have some capacity to support them. And so say if that one family decides to foster, then the rest of the church should surround that family with love and support and care for them in that way. And I've seen that with my foster, now adoptive parents, and the way that the church has absolutely surrounded them after fostering several times and then, getting me. And so I would just say, really think about what role and what capacity you could have, because everybody has the capacity to at least mentor if you're not ready to foster or adopt.
Yeah.
But then also, don't forget about the teenagers. 40 to 50% of foster youth are homeless within 18 months of aging out of the foster care system. That is so heartbreaking because we are not provided the skills and resources needed to have a successful transition. And so much of that comes down to not having a supportive adult in your life. Most foster youth do not have that at all, not even a mentor. And so you don't have that somebody to go to and turn to. And so it's reaching out, it's extending a hand, it's teaching, it's showing by example and by the way you live your life. So I truly believe that we all have a role to play, and it's just figuring out what is your role.
And a lot of people try to approach fostering and adopting as a second option to maybe not being able to have biological children, but it should really be a primary focus, like she said, especially for the church. And I would say my advice would be for foster parents not to approach fostering and adopting as you're the superhero coming to save some traumatized children. Every person who does that, the situation always ends terribly. View yourself as a puzzle piece to their success and progress, to being the person that they need to be and the person that God wants them to be. If you view yourself as a puzzle piece, then you won't feel that you need to control their life or you need to have a hand in every single thing that they do. Because like she said, they need foster parents, but they also need a mentor, a coach, a tutor. They need just a friend, a auntie, someone to call a family, so many different components and so many puzzle pieces. And so for foster parents, accept the role of just being that puzzle piece. And if you accept the role of just being that puzzle piece, then it won't seem as such an overwhelming task to be in the lives of someone who's experienced trauma. And you won't have to tokenize someone or view yourself as a savior or a hero for someone, but just a puzzle piece.
Yeah. And in the book, we do provide statistics throughout it because we really want people to understand what is actually happening in our country with foster youth, mental health, all of those sorts of things. I mean, across the board, we have statistics in there. So for those that don't know and who aren't going to read the book, over 400,000 foster youth are in the system every single day, no matter when you look. But it's just getting worse with the pandemic. And then if you think about it, where do foster youth go during even the 3% that go to college? What happens to them over Christmas break or spring break when universities close? thank God Western Michigan University has a program where we could stay on campus. But where do youth go if they're not
Or even over the
on?
summer.
Yeah, or even over the summer. So it's just thinking, of the different ways that you could support, even just providing a safe space for a weekend or something. Or, what we did was we were moving around so much between semesters, but there's a gap between semesters. So where do we put our stuff? And so thankfully, Justin had a mentor where he was able to store his stuff in her basement for those couple weeks, because we figured out that the storage unit didn't work because our storage unit got broken into and everything got stolen, all of Justin's stuff. So, it's even providing space, literal space, to put things. So, across the board, there's support that's needed.
If you have a basement, I, like as you said, I had someone I had to put my things. I had to go all my things every semester, really move from just us two.
Yeah.
We would look crazy and sometimes as a freshman or sophomore, I would sometimes feel jealous where people had their family and parents come and help them move in and out, so they will move home after the semester ends. But it would just be me and Alexis and fitting all of our things in her small little Hyundai, and just trying to move to a storage unit or move our things to someone else's basement. So offering a basement, offering just a closet, whatever you can do, just look at your life and see how you can help. And for us, even over the summer, I would study abroad,
Yeah.
and don't get me wrong, that was an amazing opportunity. But I noticed that it was also a way of not dealing with the fact that, I oftentimes didn't have anywhere else to go. And being on campus during the summertime when everybody else is going to have fun, I've did that before, and it is extremely lonely. So I will always try to do an internship, study abroad, and see what I can do just to meet friends and meet new people. But it's so many foster youth who haven't even thought of those options and opportunities.
I love it. And again, I think it's great that you kind of called out the church. And that's something that, if you're watching this and you're a Christian, this falls on us, right? That we're called to take care of the widow and the orphan. And if you look at all the numbers right now, it's crazy how many kids need homes right now. And so if you're in a situation where that's an option for you and maybe God's putting it on your heart, take time, pray about it, talk to your spouse about what it would look like to bring a kid into your home, whether as a foster placement or as a foster to adopt placement. So whatever it is that you're praying about it, just really talk to God, figure out what your role should be in the foster adopt world. And again, it doesn't have to just be bringing a kid into your own home. Maybe you are a church member and you know a family that has foster placements, has a foster adopt situation. Love on them, right? Care for them, almost like adopt them, right? And I think that that's something that all of us in the church need to be stepping up in this arena, whether it's bringing kids into our own home or supporting current foster placements. We have a job to do. It's a calling. It's not negotiable. It's something that God has told us we're supposed to do. And it's our job to do this.
I just literally before this call, I got off of another call with my mentor where we talked a bit about this being made in the image of God. And in Genesis, it talks about replenishing and subduing and producing. So as a church, we really want there to be a world filled with people who feel God's presence and feel and start to think of themselves in the image of God, because we go through our circumstances of our normal. Our normal was changed from the perfect way God made us into the world's way of normal that was corrupted, that made us feel that we were worthless, made us feel that we were terrible, and we succumb to sin and accept that into our lives. And we live that and we normalize it. Every single person has their responsibility to help someone else kind of understand their viewpoint on being made in the image of God. And that's really God's ultimate goal, and it should be our goal. Help your brother in Christ, help your sister in Christ understand that they're made in the image of God, and turn from those worldly things that corrupt our viewpoint and our vision. So if we think of ourselves in that way, and like Alexis always says, not being independent, but more being interdependent as a body of Christ. So that's something we really want to focus on and challenge each and every person to do. And that's really the foundation of our Redefining Normal company and our Redefining Normal movement. And that's what we encourage each and every person to do.
I love it. And I just feel like I've learned so much from you reading your book as well as our time today. So I just really appreciate you sharing so much of your story. And again, this idea that we are all created in God's image, we are all loved deeply by God. I have so much respect for you, just seeing all the things that God has already done in you with the healing process, but also the way He's already working through you to help move people forward that really need hope, that need healing, that need the love of God. So I'm so impressed with you guys, and I'm praying for you guys going forward for your ministry and all the things that you're doing. I mean, you're really changing the world. So thank you so much for all that you guys have done. I would love for you to share a little bit about how people can kind of support you and follow you going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. So our website is re-definingnormal.com. That's also where you can buy our book. We have merchandise on there. You can see his shirt. We got the hat. We got all that on there. And for all the listeners, we're willing to give 50% off autographed copies with promo code 50OFFRN. So 50OFFRN at re-definingnormal.com. That's where you can get a copy of the book, or you can go on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, your local bookstore, anywhere you want to. We also highly recommend the local independent bookstores. We love those. But you can follow us on Facebook and Instagram. Facebook is Redefining Normal Memoir, and Instagram is re.defining normal. So please feel free to follow us, leave a review. When you're done reading this book, be sure to leave a review on Amazon and Goodreads. That absolutely helps us. So if you are impacted, share that. Share your testimony on Amazon and Goodreads. Share it with your social media following. You have no idea how impactful that is for other people. People take recommendations from others, and everybody wants to know how you've been impacted and what has changed your life and helped you. So be sure to share that testimony and share that with other people, because it is incredibly powerful.
Yes, and our goal is really just to continue the conversation through even, we talk about the merchandise and other things that we do, but ultimately we just want to continue this conversation of redefining normal. And we feel that every single family, every single individual community needs to have this conversation of understanding what they've gone through, understanding maybe their trauma, their experiences, their insecurities, and their viewpoint, or God's viewpoint on their life. That's something we want to challenge each and every uh, family environment to individual to do. So, as she said, there's our social medias, our platforms, also our podcast that we have, Rose from Concrete podcast, where we talk in depth about these topics that are in the book, talk about other topics that are going on in the world, and just ways and strategies to improve individual character, community stability, and growth in all of our lives.
Can you also share about the Rose Empowerment Group?
Of course, yeah. ROSE stands for Rising Over Societal Expectations. And the Rose from Concrete podcast is kind of a branch of that, as well as it's kind of layers where Redefining Normal is our overall brand, where we are really tackling some of those tough issues in the foundation of what we do. And Rose Empowerment Group is a branch of that, as well as just where we can make that impact through conversation with Rose from Concrete podcast. So Rose Empowerment Group is basically, it has three fundamental structures where we focus on myself, which says character development and improving one's identity as far as the fundamental principles that make them who they are and their goals and what they want to do in life. Secondly, is my community. My community talks about the community stability, community accountability, the healthy relationships, and the group economics within community. So trying to work to uh, help communities be more aware of their economic status and economic stability altogether. Lastly, is my impact. So we want to try to impact local communities and neighborhoods and establish those businesses, programs, initiatives, and other things that will be a marker in the community and really influence others to come together and move forward and as a prosperous, healthy group and environment.
I think it's amazing. You guys didn't really like start small. You just kind of God put on your heart to do these big things and you just started doing it. So again, I just have so much respect for you guys, and I know that, God is already doing so much in you guys and through you guys, and I know that he's not going to stop now. So I'm definitely praying for you guys and praying for your ministry, for your marriage, and I am so excited to continue following you and seeing all the things that you guys do, really to change our world. So thank you guys so much for everything that you do.
We appreciate that.
Yeah.
And the fact that really all this started since last March 2020.
And
Really?
it all happened during the pandemic. So I
Yeah.
mean, really during that tough time of worldly struggles,
Hmm.
anxiety, depression, this all was birthed. So it's a blessing to be able to speak to you about this, and we just can't thank you enough for having us on here.
And I think that's so cool because I mean, you really are a prime example of that, nothing can really hold us back, right? That, even in the middle of this pandemic, you wrote this really phenomenal book. And I think it's kind of showing to us, whatever age you're at, whoever's watching this, God can use you no matter what situation you are in currently, whether it's really, really difficult season or again a pandemic and you just feel like things are difficult, right? That Justin and Alexis, you guys have shown us that you can do really phenomenal things in the middle of difficult situations. So thank you guys so much just for taking time to be with me on the show today.
Thank you. We
Thank you so
appreciate
much.
you.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, everyone, thanks for joining me for today's episode of Faith, Hope, Love with Justin and Alexis Black. I hope you were just as encouraged by their stories as I was. If you haven't already, go pick up a copy of their book. You absolutely need to read it and follow them on social media to see all the amazing things they're doing, find ways to support and encourage them as they do ministry and really work to change the world. I'll see you all next week.